How many coffees did you drink today? If you clicked on this video, you will probably drink at least one, but that's for sure more than you need. Don't worry, I'm in the same boat. Before you open your eyes, yes, coffee has a lot of positive effects, which we will talk about. But at least it has as many negative effects as it comes with excessive coffeeing. But what are these? And what happens to your body if you just decide not to drink more coffee at once? What is the difference between coffee and addiction? Nowadays, coffee addiction and addiction are completely accepted. Some even refer to their entire personality as to how much they like to drink coffee and emphasize that they will not be able to survive a single day without it. No matter how sharp these memes are, you can't laugh at the negative effects of coffee anymore. In Hungary, 70% of the population is an active coffee drinker. Just like other addictions, coffee also has serious effects on our body. Because coffee is also an addiction if it's not about drinking a little bit of black tea once or twice a month. But why does coffee have an effect on you? In short, because the caffeine in it is practically a drug. Well, obviously not like, say, vodka. To be exact, caffeine is a natural stimulant. In practice, this means that it blocks the effect of adenosine. And adenosine is a neurotransmitter that has exactly the same effect on our brain and brain cells as it does on our brain cells. So, what is the point of drinking coffee? The point is to tell our body to get up from the pajamas, and it's time to sleep. After we've drunk the coffee, the caffeine is sucked up from our stomach into the bloodstream, and from there it quickly reaches our brain, where it acts as an action. The addiction is formed because caffeine is a psychoactive substance, which is the same in a small way, but it changes the functioning of our nervous system. It upsets the brain and the central nervous system's functions, and thus affects our thinking, our feelings, our mood, and our behavior. If we repeat the same process with the right system, our body will get used to it, and if it doesn't get the right amount, it will immediately complain. That's why many people feel it's impossible to start the day without coffee. It's okay to be addicted, but what's the problem if someone drinks a black coffee every day? Or a good, sugary, syrupy, milky, super fantasy coffee from your favorite coffee shop? The fact that high blood pressure, digestive problems, hangover, headache, sleep disorders, and even anxiety can cause high blood pressure, digestive problems, hangover, headache, sleep disorders, and even anxiety can cause high blood pressure. Can cause high blood pressure, digestive problems, hangover, headache, sleep disorders, and even anxiety can cause high blood pressure. Can cause high blood pressure, digestive problems, hangover, headache, sleep disorders, and even anxiety can cause high blood pressure. Can cause high blood pressure, digestive problems, hangover, headache, sleep disorders, and even anxiety can cause high blood pressure. Actually, brown soy beverages are more likely to increase the chances of heart disease and cancer. Here's the long list of issues that should be easier to successfully cure the cardiac breakdown problem. And CL caveat is that coffee doesn't go straight to the problem. And so caffeine increases. Aber covarially increases the level of stress hormone. Bravinias because Academy of starred by its algae and gases destroys fumes. Kilowatts of bird droppings and phytochemicals is reduced by 30%. Produces negative effects of tobacco or chemicals about the issued temple complex angles above borrowed money. Produces negative effects of tobacco or chemicals about the issued temple complex. Produces negative effects of tobacco or chemicals about the issued temple complex. It doesn't only make you stronger, but it also makes you stronger. The more coffee you drink, the better your body gets used to it, and the higher your constant cortisol level will be. Obviously, we are talking about the fact that the coffee will blow up in your throat and then slowly fall back. But if you drink 3, 4 coffees a day, when do you think your cortisol level will be low? The high stress hormone level is no other cause than anxiety. You will practically be in a constant fight or feeling of helplessness. In the long run, it can be easier to develop a normalized anxiety as well. Maybe you don't have to explain too much why you can have sleeping problems with a drink that most people drink to wake up and be awake during the day. The coffee has all the blood circulation to eliminate its effect. But don't believe that the coffee you drank in 5 minutes, which has a fast effect, will die out of your body with such a speed. Maybe at first you feel like, wow, I got up well from the cappuccino, Then after a few hours, you look at the coffee machine with light-footed eyes again. Practically, it is because if you don't feel the coffee effect anymore, then you don't have it in your body anymore. And if you get drunk and drink a second, third, or even more cup of coffee, then you will pass your sleeping cycle in a methodical way. It's not a question of whether it will happen, but it's really just a matter of how long it will take you to fall asleep with your black eyes. The coffee has a lot of effect after that you don't necessarily feel it anymore. So if you drink coffee late at night, you might just lie in bed with your eyes open in the middle of the night, and you don't understand why it doesn't work. You won't be able to fall asleep. In addition, the quality of sleep is also deteriorating because the duration of deep sleep decreases, which, by the way, would be the most important part of our night. The key is that in our waking state, the adenosine blocking the sleeping aid material in the coffee blocks the adenosine. In our waking state, this is produced continuously, and then we finally wash away from it. Well, this process is exactly what destroys the coffee. The situation is even worse if someone is suffering from chronic insomnia, but in the meantime, he drinks the coffee as if someone else was drinking the coffee. In addition, there are people who have a lot of coffee, and they get up with a lot of coffee because of the negative effects of lack of sleep during the day, while in the meantime, they just roll around in bed at night. I don't even have to say that if you can't sleep at night and you want to solve this with more coffee during the day, you're going to get into a vicious circle. However, how long the coffee is drained out of your body is very different individually. Some people have their body removed in 2 hours, and others have to wait 12 hours for it. In addition to destroying our sleep, coffee also has an effect on our blood pressure. In addition to destroying our sleep, coffee also has an effect on our blood pressure. In addition to destroying our sleep, coffee also has an effect on our blood pressure. In addition to destroying our sleep, coffee also has an effect on our blood pressure. In addition to destroying our sleep, coffee also has an effect on our blood pressure. According to a study, the daily 5 cups of coffee that has been consumed between 1 and 12 weeks is high in blood pressure by 2 diameters. According to a study, the daily 5 cups of coffee that has been consumed between 1 and 12 weeks is high in blood pressure by 2 diameters. According to a study, the daily 5 cups of coffee that has been consumed between 1 and 12 weeks is high in blood pressure by 2 diameters. By Joaquin Guerrero, 1 cup coffee will not make you wake up at all. By the way, it is not entirely obvious why this coffee oft lawyer, but some researchers say that it can block a hormone that helps the arteries in circulation, which helps the arteries to expand. Others say that the side effects start to release more adrenaline from us, and this causes blood pressure to rise. But besides our immune system, coffee can also affect our digestion. It has practically a mud-slipping effect. This is caused by the release of the gastrin hormone produced by the stomach, which accelerates the bowel movement. This is why many people have a few minutes after their morning coffee to break down their toilet. But gastrin can also be combined with reflux. It can also cause caffeine reflux itself, because it relaxes the lower gastrointestinal system, and the gastrointestinal system gets a green light back. But if this is not enough, even your teeth are not doing well. That's because of their whiteness. Dried food, wine, tea, and coffee, regardless of whether they are caffeine-free or not, break down the intestinal system. Wine, coffee, and tea all have the same side effects. As a result of this, your teeth will get a little bit yellow after a while. If you drink a couple of coffees a day, don't worry if your teeth are yellower than your friends, who never drinks coffee. The worst thing about drinking coffee is that even if we can get rid of the negative effects, it's hard to get rid of the bad stuff. The same receptors are turned on in the brain as, say, cocaine or the speed-containing amphetamine. Not to mention that it's your habit to fill yourself up with a bowl and sit down next to Mellow or with your acquaintances, and you're good at sleeping. This dullness will make you have a physical relationship with your drinker, equivocal relationships. The following is true for general coffee consumption, causing physical and mental relationships. Again, with this eye-for-eye relationship, various seeming excesses occur. But what happens when you decide you'll never drink coffee again? For the first time, you expect the usual dealer to get a chocolate mark on your usual coffee bottle, but if this doesn't happen, we'll only get the real Daryl face powder. If you drink a lot of coffee, but we can also get a headache from the withdrawal. Things are, of course, not that simple because a lot of people have a headache because of coffee. Caffeine is the basis of many painkillers due to its positive effect on the headache. The main thing is that the pain as a withdrawal symptom affects many people, and it comes especially at the end of the week. At this time, those who do not work usually have to get up later, so the body's usual morning caffeine shock goes away. This, however, takes the insurance out of the coffee addict's organization and causes a headache. At this time, you just have to make sure that you do not try to treat the situation with a quarreline, such as a quarreline, because then we do not get much of the caffeine withdrawal curve. But what will happen to the adenosine if we suddenly stop regular coffee consumption? Sleep-dependent hormone production works with this when we drink coffee, but caffeine blocks it. Our organization does not understand that what will not be for the bottom now, while there is already a lot of adenosine produced. And, well, this process does not stop if we just stop drinking coffee once. The many adenosine and zero caffeine mean that we will be like a sleepwalking, constantly sleeping panda. That's why people feel much more tired when they stop drinking coffee. However, there are situations when caffeine is specifically useful. Several studies have also shown that, perhaps surprisingly, people who start exercising with caffeine can achieve better performance than those who avoid the drug. Drinking 400 to 500 milligrams of caffeine before running can easily achieve 5 or even 10% improvement. This is already a very serious advantage in competitive sports. It is no coincidence that several sports organizations have banned caffeine consumption in large quantities before competitions. About 3 to 6 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight already significantly improves the standing ability and, in all, the result. But if caffeine can rise so much and help our body in motion, then what happens if caffeine is consumed in large quantities? But if caffeine can rise so much and helps our body in motion, then what happens if caffeine is consumed in large quantities? But if caffeine can rise so much and helps our body in motion, then what happens if caffeine is consumed in large quantities? Well, that's exactly what you expect. Basically, you will miss the extra dose that was caused by caffeine. The only thing that is missing here is that you will be more tired from the already unblocked adenosine, so you will not only fall back to zero, but you will also lose your performance. But not only the sport will go worse. We have already talked about how coffee disrupts the digestive system because it has a cost-effective effect on the microbes living in us. During sleep, the digestion slows down, but when we wake up and go to sleep, during sleep, the digestion slows down. But when we wake up and go to sleep, during sleep, the digestion slows down. But when we wake up and go to sleep, a coffee starts again. Or maybe not. It's like when you light a fire and it starts burning. Basically, if you feed the fire, it will burn slowly. Well, in this metaphor, the morning coffee is not the next thin piece of wood, but the liter of gasoline that you pour on the fire. After the fuel is drained, the pull-ups start in 5 minutes in the thick mist. And the stool starts towards the end of the mist, and then it will see the light at the end of the road. But if you didn't start the coffee cooker in the morning, then the morning ritual of the morning will also take you back from the earlier process. The only advantage of this is that you will be spilling on the toilet paper because you won't need it in the long run because of the constipation. This negative effect, however, can be put in place with a lot of water and a lot of rich food consumption. Of course, not everything becomes a tragedy if we finally get used to coffeeing. There are also positive effects waiting for us. While coffee is part of our everyday life and cortisol in our blood, which can be found in increased concentration, while coffee is part of our everyday life and cortisol in our blood, it is filled with fatty and carbohydrate that is after the typically fine but bad quality food. If we stop consuming coffee-containing foods, then we are more likely to get a Big Mac, for example, and our bathroom sink can also be inflamed. Coffee, by the way, contains almost no calories. A plain pressed coffee has 2 calories. But if we put in 2 teaspoons of sugar and 2 tablespoons of milk, we immediately send 130 calories into our body. A Starbucks caramel macchiato already contains 33 grams of sugar and 250 calories, that is, it is more of a dessert than a coffee. Specifically, it contains about 125 times as many calories as a press-free coffee. In addition, you will have a higher chance of drowning, and you will also be less sick. Since caffeine drops our cortisol levels, it will be an upturn for the body if it does not have to live with stress hormones that are bombarded 5 times a day. Of course, you will be more susceptible to caffeine, as you say to caffeine, but this will only last for a few days. After that, everything will normalize. And of course, if you can't sleep from coffee, it is also clear that as you put the coffee down, sleeping disorders will also be solved. Obviously, if this does not cause anything else. Since our adenosine receptors will not be exhausted without caffeine, and caffeine will not have to be exhausted in our body in the evening, because it's not in it, we will fall asleep again in natural time. Well, you will sleep like a slave. And if your deep sleep cycles are in place and you finally wake up, you will feel totally fresh in the morning. In reality, there is no need for our body to start the day with a cup of coffee immediately. This is simply not natural. So if you get down from addiction, you will not be able to climb as a zombie. And if you can't get down with the drinks you consumed after waking up, you might want to try a cup of medicine instead of coffee. You might be able to get down from coffee, but what about the situation with the food? Click on the video on the screen and know what would happen if you didn't eat a single piece for 30 days.